Ashland Planning Board meeting of Thursday, October 24th. It is about 7:18 p.m. We are in the Selectmen's meeting room in Town Hall, and we are being recorded and broadcast on WACA cable access, and we thank them for that. On our agenda tonight, we have a special permit modification for 34 Albert Ray Drive. This is Verizon wanting to change out some antennas on for cell phone service. I'll be hearing more about that in a minute. We have on the agenda a continued public hearing for 81 West Union Street that is going to be continued. And we have on the agenda a public hearing for 12 Pond Street that is also going to be continued. For those who aren't familiar with that, that means we're not actually talking about them tonight. We have at 8:30 a public hearing on a zoning article for town meeting concerning removing mini storage warehouse facility and construction yard or landscaping business from commercial, so that those uses going forward for new developments would only be allowed in industrial. So we're holding that hearing at 8:30. If anybody has an opinion on that and is watching at home, please be here by 8:30 and you can participate. We also have a vote on the scenic road permit that we closed the public hearing in our last meeting, lot release, and some other administrative type matters. That said, let's start with our public hearing, and I will read the notice, and then the applicant can explain what they're looking to do. The Ashland Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, October 24th, 2019 at 7:15 p.m. in the Board of Selectmen meeting room, second floor, Ashland Town Hall, 101 Main Street, Ashland, Mass, to hear the petition of Cellco Partnership, doing business as Verizon Wireless, care of Duval and Klasnick, LLC, 210 Broadway, Suite 204, Lynnfield, Mass. 01940, requesting special permit modification per Chapter 282, Section 6.4, wireless communications facilities of the Ashland Bylaws. The applicant seeks to modify the existing wireless facility to consist of the removal of 3 antennas and replacing of 6 antennas, replace 3 remote radio heads, add 3 remote radio heads, and 1 OVP on existing 100-foot telecommunications tower. The antennas will be located at the existing center line height. The property in question is located at 34 Albert Ray Drive, Assessor's Map 9, lots 173, in the Residential A District. Parties wishing to be heard on this matter should submit written comments to the Planning Board ahead of time and/or appear at the time and place indicated above. Materials can be viewed at Town Hall during normal business hours or on the website. So with that said, if you'd like to introduce that.
Good evening. My name is Dan Klasnick. I represent the tower owner and Verizon Wireless in the matter before the board this evening. We had submitted an application with a project narrative, a set of plans, and other supporting documentation with the filing. As has been read into the record, this is an existing wireless telecommunications facility. Verizon Wireless is already operating from there. It has been operating from there, I think, since about 1984. So this is really just sort of one of the foundational sites if you think back to when wireless started to populate our landscape. Just as an initial point, Verizon Wireless is not proposing any changes to the ground equipment. It currently has an equipment shelter within the fenced area. That's going to remain. What's being proposed is a modification to the antennas that are currently installed. Verizon Wireless currently has 12 antennas installed at that 102 feet center line. They have 4 per sector for the total of 12 with the triangular type mount. The mount's not going to change, but just to allow for optimization of the network, 4G deployment continuation and upgrading of its equipment, what it's proposing to do is it's going to remove 3 per sector, a total of 9 of the antennas, One of the existing antennas is going to remain. And then what they will be doing is they'll be installing 6 new antennas on a new mount. So there will actually be fewer antennas after we're finished. There are now 12, there will be 9. The facility will also include the deployment of what are called remote radio heads. Those are deployed behind the antennas. Those transmit the signals, basically, back and forth between the network switching equipment. So those are put up by the antennas now because you get some loss and attenuation in the signal. They used to be keeping those inside the shelter, but now they're putting them up with the antennas. It just improves, once again, system performance, because as you are well aware, it's all about capacity, network performance, throughput speeds, and the ability to satisfy networks, the network demand for data and phone service. In addition, that is the entire modification of the facility. What I had noted, and I think is important, when considering these types of modifications, I had outlined in my narrative the federal regulations, laws, and other applicable statutes that we really need to utilize when we're looking at these types of facilities. As this board may be aware, back in 2012, Congress passed a law. It was part of a general attempt to stimulate the economy at that particular time. But one aspect of that was something that was intended to further and expedite the deployment of broadband services, as it's stated. So that's colloquially become known as Section 6409A, or the Spectrum Act. And under that act, what Congress said and what President Obama signed into law was essentially that if a facility, a modification of facility or a co-location of facility satisfies certain criteria that has been defined by the FCC, then a board must approve it. There isn't any discretion at that particular time. So really this evening, what I've tried to describe is compliance with those standards. And in this instance, I think it's unquestionably it is. What they look at is, are you going to increase the tower height by more than 20 feet? We're not increasing the tower height at all. Are you going to install new appurtenance that will extend more than 20 feet from there? We're going to be using the same existing mounts that we currently utilize. Is there going to be any disturbance outside of the existing wireless fence compound area or the area of control? No. We're going, as I said, there's no change to the ground equipment. And lastly, one of the other provisions relates to concealment elements, and there are no concealment elements in this particular facility. This is a standard monopole with the antenna arrays mounted on the outside.
Can you just repeat that again? What elements?
The 4 elements that you really look at?
The fourth item you just said.
Concealment.
Concealment elements.
Yeah, there are
Okay,
certain
got it.
designs where they conceal the antennas.
Got
And
it.
if you would defeat the concealment element, then it would not satisfy.
But there are no
the-
concealment
No.
elements on this.
No, these are internally mounted rays on the antennas.
Cool.
So I think what the federal government was trying to accomplish was, as I had said, just really to take into consideration what we're trying to accomplish is to deal with a capacity and requirements for constant modifications of these facilities or a number of modifications to the facilities. So that's why, as I understand it, that was enacted. And then the FCC went ahead and defined those through regulations. In addition to that, though, I did include in my narrative, I went through each one of your points of your bylaw and illustrated as well how this facility would comply. But I think what the statute and what the FCC has spoken to is what boards are supposed to look at when deciding these is really just solely whether or not the facility will satisfy those standards. If it does, then it has to be approved. So at this time, if the board has any questions.
Yeah, we've done a number of different modifications or new special permits, depending on the situation, for you and other providers at this and other facilities in town. Normally what we look at primarily, other than the technical review of you're not doing something that's going to damage the pole or other facility, are things like hours of operation for doing the work, whether or not you've got proper notification to town emergency services should something go wrong, especially if you're installing new ground equipment, which is not the case here. And whether there are outstanding issues with the operation in the past that should be addressed since you're coming before us. So that's kind of in the past, that's been the main things that we've looked at. And that's, but in general, it sounds like what you're doing is completely within the sorts of things we haven't had trouble approving, so.
Okay.
Do we have to add that in, the hours of the work or anything, or is that just bylaws that already say?
In my eyes, that's the bylaws.
Yeah, they just have to go with the law.
Yeah,
Okay.
7 to 7 during the weekday, regular business hours. I think that's just the kind of construction hours of, I would say, just kind of the rules of the road for construction
Yeah.
in Ashland.
Obviously, we can't put in restrictions on emergency service,
Correct.
but routine scheduled service should be during those hours.
Yep.
I know we have put a phrase like that, even if it's redundant with the bylaw, into our decision in some of these decisions in the past.
Okay.
So is this gonna be, you said 4G, not 5G?
Yes, this is just a modification.
Okay.
Yeah, they're Verizon, they're not AT&T, so they don't make up that. Never mind. AT&T
wasn't going
calls
there.
some of their
Wasn't going
4G
there.
stuff 5G.
I was hoping for 5G maybe, but, okay. To me, you're saying this application does not increase the tower height. This uses the same mount, it's just putting new equipment on the same mount. There's no disturbance outside of the facility that is already existing and already housing the equipment. And there's no change to concealment elements with regard to the tower, so.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
it seems pretty straightforward. Those would be the things I would be worried about, and then I think the things you raised were good as well, but I think it's pretty open and shut there to me, so.
Just to understand the drawings. Both of these drawings are, it's the existing and proposed antenna layout. Is that taken from the top? Like
Yeah.
that
Yeah, it's a
view?
bird's eye
Looking
view.
Looking
That's
down,
gonna-
here's the pole, and then everything's mounted around.
Where's this piece then that's shaded?
On the very top,
Yeah, am I seeing that somewhere? Shouldn't it be right next to the pole? This is out of my wheelhouse, but,
What's this? I'm sorry.
sorry. When I'm looking at the elevation of the pole, and there's this shaded area that says proposed panel antennas.
Yes, I think they're just highlighting that that's what they're changing for you, to make it easier to distinguish.
Are those shown on
Yeah, these are on the
Yeah.
top.
Yeah, they're,
See the things
this
sitting
is
around
a,
the outside.
right here.
So this is a face view of these. So 1, 2 is actually 1, 2 here.
Yeah.
right one, two, right?
So these two, 1, 2. So this is the front view of a side.
It's like looking at it
Right.
from this angle.
Oh,
So
okay.
those two there, that little
Got it.
antenna there.
Thanks. It's not a building.
Do you know the dimensions of the antennas?
yes, on that next sheet, it's a 6-footer, 72 inches. I'm sorry, it's on the next sheet, A3, the upper left-hand corner.
Okay.
Scope, NHH.
Yes, those are the new
So they're
antennas.
7 inches, 7.1 inches wide and 72 inches tall.
Yep, 11.9 inches wide, 7.1 inches deep, and 72 inches tall or high or
I'm getting
long.
with it.
Okay.
Change anything much.
Oh, I see, 11.9, gotcha.
Yeah, they hit it there.
Mhm.
And just to confirm, this change won't impact anything, should there be some emergency at the site that our responders would need to be aware of?
No.
Is this the only cell tower you guys have in Ashland, or is there other ones?
I'm not sure about
That's
Crown, I'm sorry. They have additional? Sure,
There's a
variety.
bunch on the water tank right next to Holliston there. I think all the providers have antennas on there as well. I think there might be a third one in town, I don't remember for sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't remember.
But if, there's no this is probably a little rhetorical, but there's no circumstance where for some reason this tower were to go down while it's being upgraded, that there's somehow an outage of service in the town from a cell perspective, or like, that'd be AT&T antennas in town that, right?
Yeah, I think they would just triangulate off of each other, you know, another antenna would just triangulate off of each other, I think. That's what, you know, what would happen. You know, I think this is a modification. When I reviewed the bylaws and I took into consideration the 2012 Congress, you know, the regulations, you know, I think it may be something that the planning board should talk about, updating the bylaw for the wireless telecommunications, and so this could kind of move forward if something's gonna meet these 6 standards, that, you know, can kind of move through a fairly quicker process, streamlined process. Conversations I've had with town council, some towns and most towns have already made these changes to their bylaws, citing that.
So it's effectively by right if you do that?
So yeah, so it's effectively saying, either A, you can come back in front of the planning board, but from administrative process within the building commissioner would have the ability to, or the zoning enforcement officer would say, if the application meets the criteria set forth in the Congressional Act of 2012, then the town has the administrative authority to implement or to approve any modifications to that existing tower.
Without a special permit coming to.
Without a special permit processes,
Yeah.
but I think that's something outside of this application.
Yeah,
Right
yeah.
now, the
Yep.
bylaws don't state that. There's
Yep.
been no changes, so therefore, the applicant still has to come in and have a public hearing with the planning board.
I think a better way of handling it than changing the bylaws would be to change the wording in our special permits as we grant them, so that the special permit isn't restricted to the specific antennas they're putting up,
Okay.
but it allows them to change their equipment on the poles within certain constraints over time, so that they don't have to keep coming back to us, as long as they are within a broader range of the special permit. That way, they do have to come to us initially. We get to review things concerning, emergency services, especially when they've got a generator there and things like that. It's good to have the initial review, but it's also good to write, if we write our decision more broadly, then they don't have to come back for a modification. We probably won't do that tonight, but we should look into that for the next time this happens.
Okay.
Yeah, if I may offer, I know there has been some views that, the discretionary special permit process is really inappropriate for these types of modifications, because in effect, there is no discretion. So I don't know if that's something that this board wants to consider.
I think that's something that has to be considered over time, but we understand each community deals with it in a different situation.
It's also something where I don't think we've ever denied one, and that's where it would actually become a legal issue. And I think we've had some useful, reasonable conditions put on some of them in the past, where to help alleviate issues that residents had brought up concerning specific situations that I think worked out better for everyone. So I don't want to eliminate the process.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Is my feeling, but and it's really getting outside the scope of this hearing.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
That's for another.
are there any other comments from the planning board? This is a public hearing. If any members of the public have something to say, you could come to the podium and state your name for the record.
Good evening, Mark DeSoni. Talking through the bylaws again. Home sweet home. I know, I got the bylaws at home about the wireless prospects. Couple of questions from it, just curious. These antennas that are supposed to be going up, are they gonna be overly frequentized with megahertz and broadband frequencies that overpowers other ones, or is it gonna be the same and compatible with the other antennas that are in place already?
From a technical standpoint, I don't think they would be allowed to put up something that would interfere with the communications being used by the other companies that have antennas. Is that correct? Is he just a nod or? Yeah.
Verizon Wireless has to.
Can you come up and answer that
Yeah.
here, so people at
What?
home can hear it?
Mark, you're talking to me.
Yeah, okay.
You
Through the
don't tell
chairman?
him what to do.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
No, he indicated that no, that they are not allowed to put something up there that will interfere with the other antennas and the frequencies they're using. Each provider has different frequencies, and they're not allowed to interfere with each other.
All
And-
that's
and the-
regulated too, right?
And they're all regulated as to how strong they can be, and you know they will have to operate within that. That's regulated by the FCC.
Okay, yes it is, yes.
Yeah. So.
And the other thing would be, our bylaw and the federal government, FCC, through the Obama administration, was the same year, 2012, right?
Correct, Mark. That was, so the eligible facilities, request was under the 2012 act within Congress called the eligible facility request. And that's under section 6409A, through the FCC.
Okay. And this is gonna be 4G, not 5G. Verizon has about 2 or 3 different frequency givens, the cable, broadband for computer, and business. Are they all gonna be for all 3 reasons, or just residential? This is gonna be put up in residential A.
This is for Verizon Wireless, which is the cell phone service. This has nothing to do with the FiOS home service that many of us have in Ashland.
Okay.
That's through fiber optic cables. It doesn't use any antennas like what they're talking about tonight. Totally
Yeah,
separate.
okay, last thing, thank you. Last thing is, it was through wireless phones and stuff like that. Can it be worked for residential, in-house, small business?
Anybody who wants to use the cellular network for internet, they have products to do that. Most people find with both for cost and performance, they go with the wired solutions from Comcast or Verizon for that. But you can do that. But this antenna isn't going to change the dynamics of that in any way.
It's, okay, but.
It's going to give slightly better performance for people who have the Verizon 4G phones.
Okay,
It'll support more of them at the same time, he indicated.
and it's for phone service.
The phone and data on your cell phone or other mobile
And a
device.
phone could be used as a regular home or business use phone lines. Depends on what the customer does.
That's
So it's gonna be for either one, but he says modify and make it stronger for whatever use or purpose it's gonna be for.
Right.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions regarding the FCC or the regulations?
do you have decision written up for us to
Uh,
sign if we vote in favor of this?
I do not have a decision, however, I can draft one up. If the board members feel comfortable, I can draft one up. If you wanna vote on it, a decision would have to be filed with the town clerk's office, within 14 days of the vote. And if you would all wanna come by the office and sign a decision, in the next 2 weeks, or probably, I would say by the end of next week, I would have it ready by next Thursday, by at least by next Wednesday or Thursday. I could have that drafted and ready for signatures, I would say.
The only condition I would wanna put on is, hours of construction and scheduled maintenance should be restricted to, regular hours of 7 AM to 7 PM.
Okay.
Was it Monday through Saturday?
Monday through Saturday.
Monday through Saturday and
Okay.
excluding federal holidays.
Okay.
Yeah, it was regular maintenance, you said, right, Preston?
Yes.
Yeah, emergency
Yes.
they can do.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, do we wanna, if you, get that written up, email it to us so we can read it over?
So, yeah, I can,
And if anybody sees anything,
you can proof it
yeah,
and kinda get back to me one-on-one. I would just say, just don't hit reply all, and that's where we can kinda go. But I think, this is a fairly open and shut case. If I just didn't have time to write a decision leading up to this hearing. But I feel comfortable that, with the applicant, with the existing tower, that it is an existing tower with the federal regulations, that I can have a decision drafted in a fairly quick order, because it is only a modification. And, it'll be fairly straightforward.
I'm good with that.
Are we ready to, close the public hearing and vote?
I am.
Then I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 4-0. I will then entertain a motion to, grant the special permit modification, with the, condition, as, described on, restricting hours for construction and scheduled maintenance.
So moved.
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Is this something we all have to come in and sign, or can we assign something to sign for the board? If we do sometime, I mean, if everyone can make it in, then that's fine, but.
So we got 2 weeks, right?
Do we want to,
Thank you.
Thank you.
designate,
Just mentioning it, I mean, sometimes when we
Would that
have
be
these.
in order procedurally?
Procedurally, yeah, if you wanna make
Okay.
make a motion to, have, to have Preston sign the planning board, decision, I think it's much appropriate.
Okay,
Are you willing to do that,
Yeah.
Preston?
I can do that.
Charge a car away,
Yes, yeah, that'll work.
I should have it done by minimum next, Wednesday.
Okay.
Wednesday morning should be done, give me two,
Up to you or.
Yeah, no,
up
it's
to
fine.
you.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
It's a fairly kind of a easy decision to
All right.
draft up. But yeah,
Good.
that's no problem.
Okay, so is there a motion to designate, me as the person to sign this decision on behalf of the board?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 4-0.
Okay.
So if anybody, has any issues with the way the decision is worded, let him know.
Yeah.
And-
Review by email.
And,
right?
and then I will sign when he says I'm ready to sign.
Okay.
So, all right. Our next item of business is a continued public hearing on 81 West Union Street Phase 2 site review. This is continued from October 10th, and I believe we have a letter asking for this to be continued again.
Yes, we do. We have a letter from the attorney within the packet. if I can, find it. And I'll read that into the public record. Find it. Received today, October, I'm sorry, is this 12 Pond?
No, this is 81.
81
Um,
West Union. No.
Oh, yeah, here it is. Peter, given
Oh, okay.
your consultant's recent responses, the response which our engineer obtained directly from the consultant, we have had limited time to review and respond to the remaining issues, so we request a continuance for a month. That will afford us the time to deal with any remaining questions and prepare revised plans we have discussed. Your consultant has identified that he has not seen the traffic report and continues to comment on the architecture. If that is not part of his preview, can you please advise him? If it is part of his review, can you forward to him the traffic report and architectural plans we have provided? I assume, given a month's requested continuance, that we do not need to attend this evening. So, we do not have a meeting scheduled for late November because of Thanksgiving, is that
Correct, so
correct?
the next meeting,
So this
so
would
if we're
be
gonna kick it out to a month,
December.
it's gonna be December, and I believe that's December 12th? No. We have one meeting in December, and that's gonna be December 12th.
Yes.
Our next two meetings are November 14th and December 12th. So this will be continued till December 12th.
Okay, is there a motion to continue this till December 12th at 7:15 PM?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 4-0.
So that's Saturday.
Yep.
Okay.
Right, that one's not till 8, so we can't actually continue that yet. That's not till 8:30, so we can't do the zoning. Scenic roads permit.
Yes.
I've closed the public hearing on this,
Yep.
so we can't take any more comment. And you were gonna write up a decision for us?
Yep, I drafted a decision. It is in your packets.
Yes.
What number? are we
Four.
on?
And
Oh,
5 on mine?
Item 5. It's a little bit, I would say fairly more extensive than than the scenic permits that I found in the past. However, Emma and myself worked on it to put it together. I do want to note in section facts and findings on the second page, number 1, 2, 3, and 4. In particular, number 1, the planning board concludes the approval of the petitioner's scenic road permit is not an endorsement of the Eversource pipeline Ashland project. However, the board concluded there is a need to treat the applicant the same as any other petitioner applying for said permit. And so we are not endorsing the project, we are just treating the applicant as very similar. And then also, items number 2, 3, and 4. Number 2 identifies the project, and then number 3 and 4 identifies the select board's process right now awaiting summary judgment, and then also the Open Conservation Commission's application, well, the petitioner's open application in front of the Conservation Commission at this time.
Okay, so on the, bond,
Yep.
do we have an amount or how that?
So at the last meeting, we didn't really put an amount on it. We said the applicant at the time of the pre-construction meeting. It's a little bit tricky here because there's really no building permit, so everything is gonna be to that pre-construction meeting, which is,
So you will take care of that?
administratively, I'll take care of that in communications with the
Make sure it covers
applicant.
all our concerns.
But it will cover all your concerns, and so at that time, at the pre-construction meeting, which is obviously a condition here, the applicant will submit cost estimates of the permitted work to be completed, and then a bond in that amount. Those cost estimates will most likely come in, or be submitted prior to the pre-construction meeting, then I'll kind of have DPW, I'll work with the DPW staff to kind of ground truth, quote unquote, those cost estimates to make sure that they're suitable and they would cover the amending work. I also talked about, submitting an as-built plan, also submitting, photo documentation of the stone walls pre and post work. Fairly extensive. The work between 7 and 7, which would be considered,
And no parking or standing of vehicles along Chestnut Street and Cedar Street during construction, right? That's good. I like that.
that's, yeah, I use some of these conditions, Emma and I, went through a typical planning board, permit and conditions and kind of picked out, conditions that I think, we all spoke about at the public hearing and concerns that we spoke about at the previous meetings, then applied them, within the decision.
It looks very thorough to me. Good job.
And then also, I just kind of as a number.
13 refers to occupancy permits, which is
Ooh,
not right.
not really.
Yeah.
That was a mistake.
And 13 should just be dropped.
Just also identifying number 14, the Ashland Planning Board scenic road approval shall lapse after 2 years of granting from the grant or the grantee.
See the grant date?
Hmm?
Should we say from the grant date,
Grant date, yeah.
which would be the day we sign the opinion, right?
Typically, everything is
approve it.
dependent, or is the date it's actually filed with the town clerk. So
Gotcha.
the legal date on a decision is the date it's filed with the town clerk.
Okay, so that would be in the past by
Yeah.
some number of months when they first file this with you guys.
No, the date,
the
so this
decision.
decision
The
is,
decision
yeah,
is
so.
filed with
So
town.
I
And then
would,
once
this
the town clerk
decision
files it-
is on file with the town clerk and kind of closes out, this is the final document on that application.
Got it.
Very similar to a planning board decision, that you file that decision with the town clerk, which would really kickstart that 20-day appeal period. In that sense of a planning board decision, that town clerk date is the date of the decision.
Got it.
The only issue with that is their work plan goes out like 4 or 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
So this actually says, okay, we're granting this, but you're gonna have to come back to us because you're not actually planning on one of these is at the very far end. It's the very last thing they're going to do.
That's
Good point.
That's a good point.
It's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And,
Can we ask the applicant
Yeah.
to talk to us about when that they're gonna get here, you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, can you
Since
can
we're
you at
gonna
least
get
talk to us a little bit about the work plan? The years?
Yes, good evening. My name is Matthew Waldrop with Eversource. Which area are you referring to specifically?
Where,
Scenic, this
where
rock
you're gonna-
walls on the scenic.
Yeah.
Okay.
spots.
yeah.
Yeah,
So like the
that-
last one is right by where you're doing
Like-
your final connection into
Yes.
the existing line again.
That would definitely be beyond 2 years. It would be, depending on when we get the final authorization, it would probably be 2021 timeframe, 2022, depending on conditions.
3 years at least.
3 to 4 years here.
Yes, the project itself is going all the way out. I think it could go to 2023, because we're only working 5 months out of the year. It's not contiguous the whole year. The company would certainly support, if the board wanted to issue the permit for a longer duration to avoid us coming back, but if we have to come back too, that's fine.
I want to say 5 years?
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think we want to
Go through this.
go
again.
through this again.
Okay.
When we know right now, it would not be appropriate.
Okay.
Right.
Then also just one of the conditions, condition 5, in conversation with the applicant shall provide a licensed site professional on site during excavation. A licensed site professional is typically on site when you're dealing with contamination, and we don't believe these sites are contaminated. And so I think that's something that we can also kind of scrap as a decision. I think the main thing that we need to do here is make sure that that documentation of the wall, pre and post is submitted, in a proper manner.
And how's that covered in this decision? Where does that covered there?
So this permit number, condition number 5.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that the applicant spoke of to scratch off this decision.
No, I'm
No,
thinking
but-
about where's the documentation, where's the steps requiring the documentation of it before disturbance? Pre-construction meeting, pre-construction meeting, so submit a documentation before, okay, got it.
Yeah.
So that's what I was asking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but, I mean, could you not just add the language to number 5? As needed, the applicant shall provide a licensed site professional.
Sure.
I mean, why take out the protection?
Yep.
If, you know, who knows, right? It could be, who knows?
Okay.
But, and where does it actually say they are putting the rock walls back?
If they find oil.
I don't actually see that in the conditions here, if I may be just,
Well, on the decisions, facts, and finding, number
Yeah.
2, the applicant will reuse all existing stones to reconstruct
Oh,
the
okay.
stone walls.
Yeah, it's.
I don't know what section it's supposed to be in, but.
It's not in the conditions, it's in the findings. So we're talking about the findings in the application, the overall project. But right here, number 2, the proposed project is located on Chestnut Street. The applicant, within the application package, looks to temporarily remove and rebuild 2 20-foot sections of historical stone wall. So it's remove and rebuild, and that's theoretically what they're.
but we should state in the conditions
in the
as
conditions.
well
Okay.
that the applicant shall reuse all existing stones to reconstruct the stone walls in a condition,
So basically,
in the same condition as they currently are, as they are found in the pre-work documentation.
so you're basically taking the number 2 from the decision, facts, and findings and putting it into the
Yes,
permit-
and also
permit
putting in the conditions.
And
Yeah,
in the
makes
conditions.
sense.
Okay,
That's fine.
I can do,
Yeah.
I can do that. That's fairly easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
I just want to make sure we're not missing something.
Yeah, no, I'm not, that's why I think it's great that
Yeah.
we sit here, we go over the decision.
So. Is there anything else? I think this is pretty good. If we're ready, I see one of us is still, are you ready? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I think I think we could vote, on the permit, and then, we can sign, once the discussed changes are done,
Sounds good.
so. All right, is there a motion to grant the scenic road permit, based on the draft decision, with the changes as discussed?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 4-0. All right, so,
Mr. Chairman, now you have that vote, can I mention something that's positive?
no, we're not having, the public hearing is done. We've had all our discussions on this. So, once you have the decision, let us know and we'll come in and sign it. So,
Thank you. And will the copy be emailed or,
Yeah,
hard
I'll
copy?
scan it and,
Okay.
I'll scan it and send it over to you.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
all right, our next item, 8 o'clock, public hearing, 12 Pond Street site review and special permit continued from October 10th, 2019. And as I can tell from the fact that we don't have a large crowd here tonight, this item
Should be
is
section 3.
also being continued. And yes, we have a letter here As we discussed, our project is undergoing considerable design changes to the building in response to input received in various forums. We are making a second presentation this evening before the Design Review Committee. We would like sufficient time to be able to consider any constructive feedback and make further changes to the plans as may be necessary to secure approval from the Planning Board. Accordingly, I am writing to request a continuance of the Planning Board hearing scheduled for Thursday, October 24th, until the next regularly scheduled meeting of the board on November 14th. Thank you for your time and attention in this matter. Until then, be well. Terrence P. Morris, an attorney for the applicant. Is there, oh wait, what is our schedule on the 14th? What time do we want to put this?
I won't be here,
That's the
if that makes any difference.
problem.
That is a problem, because I won't be there either, so we won't,
Yeah, but
well, we are
should-
allowed to miss one each,
And
and
we're
we're
not
not
gonna be
voting.
voting on anything, so.
So if,
We'll have
assuming,
quorum, but
you
Phil
can
has to
still-
be here.
we will,
No.
yeah,
Well, yeah,
but it means,
we won't vote on it, so we can still have
yeah,
the
and
hearing.
we're only allowed to, each member can only miss one meeting
Yeah.
on the topic and still be
Yeah.
eligible to vote, so.
I know, that
So-
should be the only one of them.
Okay. What else do we have on the 14th? Do we have anything on a specific time?
I don't see
Uh,
if Phil's gonna be
we
here
do-
because if he's not
We have a
gonna
zoning
come.
amendment, so a zoning amendment came forth. There's some aspects, some language, some verbiage within the zoning bylaws that still reflect the selectmen. And so there is a zoning that at this town meeting, as they amend the bylaws to select board. There also has to be a zoning amendment that states, that changes select board to, I'm sorry,
Select
Selectmen
men
to-
to select board.
selectmen to select board within the zoning bylaws.
Mhm.
And so there's gonna be a zoning zoning proposal to do so, just as tonight, we're talking about a true zoning amendment. This is just a language or a
Linguistic.
linguistic change.
I would think that we would want to put Pond Street first on the agenda.
Yeah.
There's going to be a significant amount of public comment. Let's do it and get the
Okay.
draw
So let's
out
do
of the
So
way.
is there,
7:15?
yeah, so is there a motion to continue 12, Pond Street till 7:15 on, Thursday, November 14th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 4-0. All right. And our next item of business, finish the first page. We have an 8:30 zoning hearing, so we have to wait for 8:30 on that. We have a lot release for Wilson Circle Lot number 3.
Yeah, so this is a, Wilson Circle, the preserve at Oregon, was a subdivision which was approved back in 2011, 2012 time period. All the lots on the roadway have been developed, and there's one lot, Lot 3 in particular, that has not been developed. In 2017, the town of Ashland accepted the roadway as a public road. And the previous owner of the lot has sold the lot to a development, to somebody that's looking to build a house. However, in my records, I have not been able to find that Lot 3 has been released. And I've not been able to find that on the registry of deeds. And so with that stated, the applicant of the building permit is looking for the lot release of Lot 3. So really, it's a clerical issue that the lot needs to be released, so the building permit can be issued from a mechanical standpoint. But there's no concerns with this subdivision. The town actually already owns the roadway. And I believe, I'm very surprised that, as his property was granted from the previous owner to the new owner, that a title company would not have picked up on this. Within the records that I have in the planning office, Lot 3 has not been released. So therefore, that's why I would ask the board to release Lot 3 of the definitive subdivision, the preserve at Oregon.
This
There's
was
no issue.
Kane's.
Correct, this was Michael Kane's
Yes.
development.
There's no issues
There's no issues, there's just, this is just a clerical, mechanical issue, that we are taking care of, you know.
All right.
Yeah, I heard this was a pretty good development, with net zero homes and, be a nice place to live,
Yeah.
right
So-
near the town forest there.
So this is, I can pass this around and everyone can sign it and I'll notarize it. And then therefore the applicant can take it to the registry of deeds and, record it.
Is there a motion to grant the lot release that the planning director described to us?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 4-0. Okay. Thank you for that.
No problem.
All right.
Two copies?
Oh, there's 2 copies?
No, there's
No,
not.
no, no.
Second one's
Apologies.
notarized.
Yeah.
Usually there's so many copies of things. It's nice to have only one.
We're doing one tonight.
Out of order with your seat,
No,
but
maybe
that's
not.
okay.
It's very confusing.
All right. Looks like our next item of business is a covenant extension for Hillside Estates. I believe this is the extension to High Road Extension.
Correct. And the applicant, Mr. Hickey, well, the applicant of the entire subdivision is here in the audience. But yes, this is a covenant extension. And this, the original covenant, was dated September 26, 2016. And I believe it has expired, and so we are looking to extend this out until July 30th, 2020.
Okay. Normally we'd want to have things extended a little longer than that. So that, because I know if there's a problem, we're usually a little slow to go after the security, and we wouldn't want it to be expired.
Okay.
I also know we don't have we have a long history, a positive history, I should say, with this developer, so I'm not as concerned as I might be with some other developers.
Mr. Hickey, would you mind stepping up to the microphone and?
Sure, Steve Hickey with Richmond Development.
So with just stated, I know, we've, this development is ongoing and the covenant had expired.
Correct.
In the covenant extension you submitted, it obviously states July 30th, 2020. Is there a reason why that date was picked, or are we? would
The
you-
covenant expired July 20th of this year, or July 30th, whatever it was, this year. And the covenant just cleanly said the planning board can extend for 1 year. So I just went for the 1 year, just in covenant, easy language thing. If you
Okay.
wanted to extend it further,
Oh.
it's not an unreasonable request. It's a kind of an awkward time, given town meetings and whatnot. July is an awkward time, but I can come back at some other time, or you can pencil it in, whatever you want.
What is your schedule of getting the work done on this project?
There's just a few more houses to do. The houses will be done by the spring, and then it's just a matter of cleaning it up and getting it done.
Okay.
So it should be complete by then, but the ongoing stuff as far as getting it in front of town meeting wouldn't happen until,
Right, we'd need as far as road acceptance, we want it to, well, actually, it'll have gone through a winter this year if
it's not topped.
It's
So
not-
I
it's
don't know
not
whether you
topped. So,
want it
yeah, we
topped.
normally want it to go through a year, so it would be in 21 that we would accept the road.
Okay, so if you want to pencil in 21, that's fine with me.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that would be better.
So July 30th of 2021?
Sure.
And then you don't have to come back soon.
Thank you.
Though we like seeing you.
Appreciate that.
Alright, so, I believe we need a motion to accept the covenant extension until, July 30th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 4-0. We need to sign this then?
Do I have to make the changes in there, the date?
I did it.
Oh.
Is this, was this his form?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll never
Yeah.
it back.
Okay, next thing on our agenda is, let's see, do we have any minutes?
One.
Yep, section 6.
Uh,
6.
I notice, minutes are not listed on the agenda. I don't
On the next page.
think
Yeah.
that's, oh, yes, they are. I'm sorry. I didn't notice there was another page of agenda. I was gonna say, we should put put that on the minutes, even though it's not an item people usually really care about, as long as they get approved.
It's a,
Well, on page 2, 52 and 53, the board confirmed the rendering of the exterior of the building will present it to the DRC and set as proposed. What is that supposed to mean? 53 and set as proposed? Am I just not getting it? It's
maybe
possible.
site plan?
That is awkward wording.
I mean, I agree, we did confirm the rendering, so 52 is fine, I'm not, the last bit I don't get.
I'm not sure what the right wording for that is.
Yeah, I don't know
I'm
what
not-
we're trying to just say, yeah.
I don't know
You
that
could put
anyone
it-
will ever read that again after
Yeah, I think
tonight.
you put a period after DRC and strike 53, but that's fine. I defer.
Yeah, I just strike line 53 is good, and just put a period at the end of 52.
Do we
Yeah, That's better.
do we define DRC within here? Otherwise, we should spell it out. Yeah, there you go, you're good. Yep, row 36, cool,
Yeah.
thank you.
It's actually 115 to 117. It's not actually correct, that, the board, voted in the spring to join the International Code Council. And based on the size of our community, we have 4 votes, and those 4 votes were assigned to the board members not up for reelection. And this kind of, the way it's written is flipped around backwards of that. The way it's written, it says that we get 4 votes because that's the way we set it up, and that's not correct.
So is Mr. Moki going to or not going to sit in on Pond Street?
He forgot to ask him, and he's now missed a meeting
Yeah, so
as well, so we're just
No
gonna try to
can-do.
not miss meetings and keep all 5 of us and be careful about that. I noticed on the co-urbanized discussion, the board asked the director to update the town manager on his opinion to ensure he agrees. Has that been followed up on, or is that still on your to-do list?
Still on the to-do list, you know,
Okay.
we've had some discussions on it, but nothing concrete is gonna come out of the conversations to report back to the planning board, I would say.
Okay.
I think it's still, I think we talked about it, but I think I think he still wants some more time to kind of think about it, think about how it's been utilized throughout the town in the past couple of years. You know, obviously, he's had a couple planners working for him that have had their own beliefs about co-urbanized that I assume they had talked about, and I think he's still kind of collecting his thoughts on the
Yeah.
topic. And also, I think the big thing is before we decide to do anything, it's, you know, maybe we look at what other tools are out there for interaction and engagement, you know, and so I think it's an ongoing conversation.
Okay.
93, 94, 95. So, I think they're factual, but the only thing for clarity, you know, I might add, you know, the board did not reach any conclusion on, you know, on the previously discussed items, or I just want to say that, you know, while there was a discussion, there was absolutely, you know, there's no decision, obviously, there's no jurisdiction for a decision, I guess. Too much, probably, build opinions. We reconfirm the value, discuss changing the committee's role by requiring applicants to meet criteria, you know, but
I would say the fact that we don't say anything in here about making a decision implies we didn't make a
yeah,
decision.
that's
Yeah.
fine, that's fine.
It's not like it's on some project that some developer's gonna cite in some future dispute.
Yeah.
Since it's an internal matter. Anything else? Is there a motion to approve the minutes of September 26th, 2019 as corrected?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 4-0. All right. I think we have administrative matters, reports. You have a report?
Yeah, so, the CPC, of which I'm the co-chair as a representative of the, from the planning board, the CPC is putting forward, supporting 2 items in this fall, town meeting. One is the proposed granting of money to help preserve the stone bungalow located in the town forest, which has some very interesting connections to Henry Warren and other historical figures here in town. And the other project is we're moving forward proposed funding for some enhancements to Mill Pond Park. So as, as the Mill Pond Bridge is being completed, this would be, improving the recreation and space of Mill Pond Park and really trying to connect the bridge to the park to the downtown, via, improved walkways and benches and landscaping and fencing and so forth. So both of those items were presented to the Finance Committee this week, and the Finance Committee voted to recommend those to the townspeople in this upcoming fall meeting. So those are just a brief update on that. So.
All right.
Okay.
Any other reports?
I have one note, it's not an official report, I guess, but just in the interest of trying to better or strengthen or further understand the relationship between the Design Review Committee and the Planning Board, I reached out to the Design Review Committee member, Sarah Hines, who's the registered architect on that committee, and she and I are going to be meeting at some point soon, just to really discuss not any project in particular, but the relationships between the board and the committee and how we can best work together without repeating our efforts or stepping on toes, or to try to utilize that committee to its fullest. And in that vein, I've also have a copy of all of their regulations, I guess, that they follow. So I'll be going through those to just better understand what their mission is and to make sure we're collaborating as intended.
That's great.
So
Yeah, it's good.
Will you report back to us?
it will be a secret. No, I will report back. I will report back. Looking forward to
Alright.
it.
Excellent. Our next item is, unless somebody else has something, our only remaining item is a 8:30 public hearing. We will take a brief recess until 8:30 then. Welcome back. The planning board is back in session. It is now a little after 8:30, so we can hold our public hearing. I will note that it was advertised at 7:15, but then put on the agenda for 8:30, so we have to start at the later of the two times.
Correct.
And so I will now read the notice. The Ashland Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, October 24th, 2019 at 7:15 PM in the Board of Selectmen Meeting Room, second floor, Ashland Town Hall, 101 Main Street, Ashland, Mass., to see if the town will vote to amend Chapter 282 zoning, Section 3 of the Ashland zoning bylaws. To see if the town will vote to amend the Town of Ashland zoning bylaw, Chapter 282, Section 3 as follows. Cross out our eliminations and bold underline is new language. Section 3.0, use regulations, principal uses. F, industrial uses. Mini storage warehouse facility. The changes are in columns CH, CV, and CN, where CH, which is commercial highway, is changed from yes to no, and CV and CN are changed from PB for a special permit granted by the planning board to no. The only remaining entry that is not no is under I for industrial, and that is not changed. Likewise, the same use change is being made for construction yard or landscaping businesses. Parties wishing to be heard on this matter should submit comments to the planning board ahead of time and/or appear at the time and place indicated above. The proposed zoning amendment language is available in the Community Development Office and the Town Clerk's Office during normal business hours or on the town website. So that being said, this is a zoning change that the planning board has discussed internally at a number of meetings starting early this year. And we were going to do this for the Springtown meeting, but it got postponed due to the changing the staff. So, the short version is, if you want to, for existing businesses, this makes no difference because zoning is grandfathered. But for new businesses, if you want to put in a mini storage warehouse facility, a self-storage facility, or a construction yard or landscaping business, we are saying with this zoning change that these would be appropriate only in the industrial zones in the town, and this is not what we want in our commercial districts.
Correct.
So that is the change. The planning board is holding this hearing tonight. We are advisory to town meeting. State law requires that the planning board conduct a hearing like this on any zoning change before town meeting can hear it. So, does this make sense to everyone on the board? I know we've discussed this before, but I want to make sure that my explanation is good. Any comments?
I was just,
Limiting
What-
those to industrial areas.
I was just wondering, is there a place in the bylaws, maybe Peter knows this, where, like, the definition of commercial village is given? Is it,
The
like,
commercial village?
yeah, like what that,
The
a
CB
description
and
of,
CN.
Oh, the CV.
yeah, like what it means, like what the visual is.
Well, we have our zoning map right
It's
there.
really more, yeah, I mean, it's really just more where the colors are on the map is kind of how, it's not so much in a worded definition of it, it's more in, well,
Just where that zone is.
maybe that's not how it should be, maybe there
Yeah,
should be a
that's just a
worded
kind of
It
the
just,
title.
like, I don't know what a commercial village is as opposed to a commercial neighborhood. Yeah, I'm just curious, but if there's
Yeah.
not a definition, then there's,
I'm-
Village, CB, village commerce.
So I don't believe we,
It's the CO, office commerce, that was eliminated, so I think this is old and this one's eliminated, so it's not in the, but
So no.
CV, let's see, in,
Pond Street's, yeah, so Pond Street's all CH, I'm sorry.
CH
Yeah.
is the yellow.
looks like it's also, there's some CV in there, right? I mean, and,
There's a little bit.
right where Dunkin' Donut is.
Yeah.
So, and also the letters, right, so CH is highway commerce, even though the C comes first, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Do you have an explanation of why they put the C first? You know, it's commerce slash highway.
So all commercial are together, it's just the way it's done.
Mm-hmm.
Industrial, which is,
Is that this brown?
Industrial's the
Yes.
brown. Yep.
Not this. Maybe.
yeah, because we know, like,
Oh, okay.
Eco over here, that's brown.
Right.
This side of Pleasant is brown,
Yeah, so CN is right here. That looks like that color, right?
Yeah, CN is, Union Street near downtown.
Yeah.
So the industrial, it would move it to only an industrial.
Yeah,
I mean, and for, yeah. If you wanna look, if you wanna look at this, Trish, this is the online, you can pan around on that, and
is that easier to
if it's
follow?
easier to kinda, you can zoom in and,
So industrial is what?
yeah, the industrial's brown.
Just all the different colors on the colored zoning map.
That's a lot of
It's a little
industrial.
confusing, because some of the colors are close.
Yes, yeah, agreed, yeah, you really, if you were colorblind, you'd be in trouble, or had any issues. Challenging.
And then you get texturing for the ones with the overlay districts, so, all right. It is a public hearing. Comments from the public?
Again, good evening, Dr. Sawing. You're making my homework at the bylaws so much easier. Zonings, changes, commercial, industrial. And go back to the commercial villages, depends on what's in the area and site acreage. That's commercial village, how close everything is. Industrial, my question would be, it says landscaping on the agenda for the chart. Can it be any other industrial other than landscaping? What's the other choices?
There are a lot of other uses that are allowed in the industrial zone. We just, since we're not making changes to those entries in the table, we didn't present them as part of the article.
But is there, they can say tonight, maybe one or two that I might,
So we're actually not changing what you can do in the industrial zone at all.
I understand that. I'm asking what sort of other than landscaping is accepted, maybe? What
So
could
what are
come
the other
in?
industrial uses, Mark?
Yes,
There's a lot of them, like
There's a, yeah.
you know, auto repair,
it's in the bylaws, I know
all
that.
kinds of things.
So Mark, I can read verbatim for you and all the folks at home. What is allowed.
See, there's a use, these are
Actually,
industrial uses that are
In
identified, right?
the industrial,
It's about 2 paragraphs.
Yeah, no, the industrial use, we've got,
It's, yeah, that list on the
earth
left.
removal, light manufacturing, wholesale warehouse or distribution facility, manufacturing, assembly or packaging, research laboratories and development facilities, computer software development, computer hardware development, food and beverage manufacturing or bottling processing facility, alternative energy and renewable energy manufacturing facilities, alternative energy and renewable energy research and development facilities. And that's just in the section on industrial uses. Then there's accessory uses, other uses.
I'll save you all that reading time,
Yeah, there are a lot of things that can
Yes.
be done.
because I know that too, because I got the sheets at home, and
Yeah.
it's almost engraved in my skull. For our future use for Pond Street, if you change all that, all those may have a chance to come in if you get the right applicant, developer applicants, and companies that follows him.
What we're, the frontage on Pond Street is not industrial. So this would say that you would not be allowed to put in a mini storage facility
Right.
or a construction yard or landscaping business on the Pond Street frontage like you are like you can now.
Okay. But that-
Same with 135.
But, okay, that says you can still, for a lot size at the time, bring in all the others as small professional industrials.
We are
Which is
not,
just listed, those charts.
Yeah, Mark, just to kind of go through, I think what you're trying to hit on is that in the Highway Commerce District, the CH District, if, what, the allowed uses would be a computer software development company, which would be by right, a computer hardware development company by right. So yes,
Yes,
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
yes, those, I've been trying to hit on those for a while, and that's the other reason why I came in and asked for the copies, and went down sustainability downstairs and talked net zero building codes and stuff like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Hickey, just a quick question. What's the problem with a construction type yard? You could have a little office building with some construction equipment out back. This is, that's a pretty reasonable use in town. There's not a huge demand for a lot of office space here and retail space, that sort of thing. If you're looking for a development, what's the problem?
I think the thinking we were having is that we have a fair amount of those now, and that's not the kind of development that we'd like to see, especially as Pond Street gets developed. That we'd like more consumer-friendly type businesses, is the thought.
I mean, I think the genesis of this proposal change was a great deal of community feedback, particularly around, the project at 81 West Union and that facility. The board has received over time quite a bit of community feedback and thought about that there, and so I don't think this is I don't think this is having an issue with those uses. I think it's just saying, where do we want them to be, or where do they fit best with the town? And I think was the intent here based on community feedback.
I'm a guy that has some commercial highway land that's zoned.
Sorry, you need to be at the mic.
I have some land that's zoned commercial highway, you're taking away a perfectly fine use. 81 West Union Street, the feedback for that, I mean, you want to talk about why that is the way it is, share that with the town on what should have happened with that. Don't go changing my rights because of something that wasn't handled correctly with 81 West Union Street.
Right.
Is that fair? It's a fair statement. You know it is.
Yeah, there is some truth to,
Very fair
there's truth to that, but also, in looking at that, our thought was, these are uses that we don't see as appropriate in the entire zone, even at, not just that one site. That was our thought in making this change.
And again, for everybody at home, this is being presented to the townspeople for consideration. This is not a unilateral decision by the board. We're presenting it for people's consideration to vote on in town meeting.
But when you're holding up 81 West Union Street as like a target, I mean, there was supposed to have been stuff in place to have avoided that sort of thing.
That is
So,
true.
That is true, correct?
Yes.
So I'm taking a little bit of offense at, you using that as a thing we don't want, when reality was, my understanding, the stuff was set up so that it shouldn't have been that way.
I'm,
Well, they were
I'm
trying
not
to
familiar,
prevent that.
I'm not familiar with what he's referring to, but
We'll get into that more when 81 finally comes back.
okay.
I
I
think,
think
in-
it predates my
Trying to
time.
Yeah.
prevent that from
Yeah.
happening again.
Yeah,
yeah.
but on other properties as
Yes,
well.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I wasn't here for the beginning part of this either, but I think it's about, and not putting a judgment on it either way, but I think it's about the town envisioning kind of these corridors that we do have, that are kind of open, open for different types of development. And the town envisioning, when we talk about the overlay district from Pond Street, and envisioning as the town grows in density, grows in people, as we know, like what we want those things to become, what we want to become as a town, and what kind of streets do we want to have that are engaging for people along those streets, and those really are our only remaining resources, you know, to help the town to develop in the way that we want. I think we all drive through, you know, areas of Framingham, say, and we're like, this is not what we want here. You know, and you drive through other towns and you're like, boy, I really like the feel of this street. And so all those towns went through the same thing, some more successfully and in time, and some probably too late to kind of make their town into the vision that they wanted it to be. So I think that's where it's about envisioning, I think. And, you know, I think it's up to it's up to town meeting to kind of understand what the vision is for those things. That said, you know, there's a lot of brown, I guess, on this map that's industrial use, you know, for those type of businesses. You know, that they're not being excluded, or, you know, that it's not that it's not wanted in the community, but just like I think Joe said, putting it in the proper place where it makes sense.
Okay, to semi-piggyback on that, how much has the planning director and assistant planning director, has this get ready for the, how much work is still left to be done on this? How far have you gone completely? Or is this completely, or is it in
Yeah,
progress?
so it's a zoning change and it's an amendment, and at this point, it's been advertised and, in the newspaper, and it's gonna be presented on the town warrant. The warrant has also already been voted on, I believe, by the select board.
And it's for the spring town meeting?
No, it's for the fall town meeting, which will be a special town meeting held on November 20th.
So you have the information zone and the residence and the explanation in the closed warrant to be presented.
The planning board will file a report at town meeting. Typically, I believe in this town, it's been always historically an oral report at town meeting at the time of this article.
Okay, and when was this, the town warrant was closed a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
It was like early October or
Yep.
late September?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the first,
Nope.
at
So-
least here.
So this was submitted to the Board of Selectmen regarding bylaws and changing of bylaws, just like every other application, there's publications that have to take place. And the publication has to take place after it's submitted to the warrant. So therefore, this ran in the Metro West newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks leading up to this meeting to meet all the Attorney General's requirements. And so that's why tonight is the first, I would say the first public meeting, which the public input is taken into consideration.
But I don't, did the select board put it on the agenda the last meeting and talk about it?
No, the select board does not have jurisdiction over this. They're simply agreeing that, yes, this article can go on the agenda. It's not for the warrant. It's
Okay.
not something that they get involved with.
Well, the reason they probably, they want to go through the planning board, get their input to make sure.
No, no. The select board simply says that we told the select board, we're putting this on the warrant, and they said, okay, it's on the warrant. That they are not doing any further discussion of this. Zoning is not the selectmen's jurisdiction.
No, but it's to get in the warrant an article, they close the warrant as a select board with
We have-
articles in.
We
the
have
book.
already put it on the warrant.
So they had the first close, they had the first look at it before here.
It was submitted to the Board of Selectmen, yes, Mark.
Thank you.
If the board's argument at town meeting is gonna be, hey, we don't wanna have something similar to what 81 West Union Street is, I'm gonna suggest that maybe the board may wanna hold off on doing this amendment until that stuff kinda gets resolved. Just,
Thank you, we'll take that in as advice.
Good evening. Emery Bond, 59 West Union Street. I own property which is in the Commercial Highway District. I currently use a commercial component of the property for my business. And the proposed zoning change will eliminate a use that I currently have, which is similar to a contractor's yard, landscaper's yard, or storage. They mentioned, I'm sorry, I'm not sure who mentioned it, but they mentioned grandfathered. How do I get grandfathered, and what's the documentation on that?
Well, Mr. Bond, I believe you also have a business certificate with the town clerk's office, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Uh,
But I'm now an LLC, and the town doesn't require you to maintain a business certificate if you have an LLC.
I do not have the answer for that then
So-
regarding that.
So I would like to get some more information on how that grandfathered would be implied, and then how will the zoning change restrict future expansion and use on my property?
I can ask town council and they can actually write opinion for that.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good question.
Thanks.
I have one thing, I know when these come up at town meeting, the town moderator is often very restrictive of any amendments to zoning because they're supposed to go through the planning board hearing process first. And one thing I think it might be wise preemptively, should something come up at town meeting, is to specify that we have considered the possibility of doing either of these changes independently. So that if for some reason at town meeting, they wanted to either vote separately on each line, or somebody wanted to amend to remove the change for one of these lines, that would still be within the, what we have discussed at the hearing. Does that make sense?
Meaning if somebody were to challenge one
One of them.
Right, so somebody,
of the uses, that if it were to be
Some-
successfully challenged, that the
somebody
other
wanted
would
to,
maintain.
on the floor, say, I want to amend this and not make one of these two changes, that we could still go ahead with the other one if that was the sense of town meeting.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, so I don't see that making one of these changes is necessarily tied to making the other change.
Yeah.
I would agree.
And I was thinking we should,
Be able to separate.
we should allow for that separation should there be a desire to do that.
Gives people more say
Yeah,
and more.
so, so,
I can draft a motion, I can draft the two alternative motions.
well, I don't think we need to
Okay.
draft anything, I was just thinking, we could have after we close the public hearing, we could have a motion stating that the planning board considered that
Okay,
should town meeting choose to take up the change for mini storage warehouse facility, separately or independently from construction yard or landscaping business, we consider that a reasonable option for, should town meeting choose to do so.
I further understand.
Just so that the moderator has a sense of what was and wasn't considered at our hearing.
Okay.
And so just for clarity here, so that would give us, the x-axis could be independent, right? You're
Yeah.
saying you could do construction yard but not do mini storage or vice versa.
Yeah.
Right.
But would that open up the?
No,
No,
Okay.
it's still the
I think
changes.
it's too
yeah,
complicated
I think
to
that,
go
The
that-
that's
changes
getting,
would be the same,
yeah.
but the uses would,
Yeah.
you could
So-
separate
yeah,
the
that,
uses.
that's all I'm saying.
So this is one, this is one, this is, you know,
Yeah.
1A, this is 1B, you could not do 1B and do 1A or
Yeah.
vice versa,
Yeah.
but there's no,
That-
variations on those.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
those two lines, as far as we're concerned, could be considered independent if need be.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying.
Yep.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on this from the public or the board? Seeing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 4-0. I'd like to do the motion that I suggested where, that the planning board has determined that mini storage warehouse, consideration of mini storage warehouse facility changes and construction yard or landscaping business changes may be done independently if town meeting so desires.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's 4-0. And we would then want a motion to make a recommendation for how town meeting should act on this. And if the motion, I believe that the planning board is in favor of this, so the motion would be to recommend that town meeting vote in favor of this article.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 4-0. Okay. So, yeah, so the only, if I could get a write-up of this for town meeting, so I can give the report on this article.
Yep.
That'd be good, so.
We can do that.
That said, it is 9:02, is there a motion?
I move that we close the meeting at 9:02.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes 4-0. Thank you and good night.